Hello, everyone. My name is Amherst Williams, and I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut League of History Organizations. And I want to welcome you to, I guess, what is our last colleague circle of this summer as we begin to start thinking about the fall. And today we'll be talking about gearing up for Connecticut History Day. We have with us today several guests who are going to help us sort of, learn a little bit more about Connecticut History Day and get us kind of all on the same page if you're not as familiar with it or haven't participated in the program in the past. We have with us Rebecca Tabor, who's the head of public programs and Connecticut History Day at Connecticut's Democracy Center and Connecticut's Old State House. Joanie DiMartino, who's the museum curator at the Prudence Crandall Museum, and also the mother of our third guest, Dante DiMartino-Hart, who is headed to Yukon Avery Point in the fall and a longtime History Day participant. So what we'd really like to do today is have an opportunity to, learn a little bit more about History Day and how the program works, which is something Rebecca's prepared some slides around. And each year, as you probably know from CLHO newsletters and messages that you may get from Rebecca or Nicole or others at the Democracy Center, one of the things they like to do is solicit Connecticut-specific topics. History Day is a national program. But one of the things that we're hoping to have a chance to do today in some breakout rooms a little bit later on, about half past the hour, is to help generate some of those topics from our own institutions. Ideas about, resources that you might have, documents, artifact collections, other things that can help bring students who are researching for Connecticut History Day projects to your sites and learn a little bit more about the local aspects of some of these national stories. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Rebecca. And we'll have a little opportunity after Rebecca, Joanie, and Dante have each had a chance to speak for a quick Q&A. And then we'll move into the breakouts and reconvene a little bit before 1 o'clock to just share a little bit out from some of the ideas that we came up with in our smaller groups. If you have any questions or resources you want to share, you can feel free to use the chat to pop them in there. Please let me know or raise your hand if anything urgent comes up. Thanks for being here. I'm going to hand things over to Rebecca.
Great. Thanks so much, Amherst. We really appreciate the opportunity to meet with everyone today and talk a little bit about History Day and solicit hopefully some really good topic ideas. To start with, let me just ask how many, I know some of you like Tom Thurston have participated in History Day, but many of you are new to me, and so I just wondered how many of you have ever judged or participated in any way with History Day?
And maybe we can just have folks do like a hand raise,
yeah,
a Zoom hand raise.
Yeah. So a couple folks. Looks like History Day is new to a few folks as well, and so I just wanted to start off. I don't need to reiterate what Amherst just covered so beautifully. Let me just get to the start of my slideshow. What our agenda is for the day. But for those of you who are not as familiar with Connecticut History Day, it is an affiliate program of National History Day. There are 58 different affiliates. The students often talk about the contest, but we talk about it as a year-long academic program. And the reason why National History Day was founded in the late 1970s was really because of concern over the teaching of social studies. And I kind of chuckled to myself as we mentioned this, because if we thought it was bad then, it's in some ways has gotten somewhat worse over time. The program reaches middle and high schoolers, so 6th to 12th grade students, and it's inquiry based. It fits in with the suggested frameworks for the social studies in Connecticut, and it's really centered around historical research, interpretation, and creative expression. Each year, there's a different annual theme. The reason for that is because the theme is a lens at which students look at the past. The reason for a broad annual theme also is that History Day is really designed so that it can fit into any kind of social studies curriculum, whether a teacher is teaching world history or if they're teaching American history. So this year's theme is debate and diplomacy in history, successes, failures, and consequences. I know that Amherst has shared that with you, the theme sheet. There's a even larger theme book that you can look at. But this is the theme which we are operating with. And we definitely would love to, in our breakout rooms, would love to have an opportunity to really solicit and get some good ideas for projects. The reason for that is, about 10 years ago, we took over, we assumed management of Connecticut History Day, and we see History Day as a means of helping all of us in the heritage field, of getting students excited and interested in their local history. And so my slide does not want to, oh, there it goes. You might be wondering, well, how do they judge these? There are 5 category types. So the students, our tagline is student choice, student voice, because students can choose the topic that they explore. They can choose anything they're interested in as long as it relates to the annual theme. They can then choose whether they want to work alone or in groups, and they can choose what type of project they do as their end result. Students can create an exhibit, they can do a performance, create a documentary, write a paper, or do a website. And so within History Day, so people will ask, well, who's the winner? Who's the winner? There are a lot of winners because we have all of the categories are judged like versus like. So an individual documentary done by a senior student would be judged separately from the junior division. And junior division would be the middle school age kids, senior is high school. But the final projects, these are the types of things that you see at a contest. And in Connecticut, we have 6 regional contests. The students who win at regionals go on to the state contest, and from there, students represent Connecticut at the national contest. So this was a suggestion by Amherst. What makes a good topic? As I explained to others, we can't force students to choose a topic. And some years you get the same topics. For instance, I've been doing History Day for a decade now, and every year, no matter what the theme is, you do get a Triangle Shirtwaist Factory project every year. Jackie Robinson always makes an appearance no matter what. And those are all very good topics, but we believe we want students to do Connecticut topics. And you've probably received the surveys we send out in the past asking for information. And I think sometimes maybe those surveys might have intimidated folks, but what we really want to get from everyone are ideas. It's not enough to just state the idea to say, oh, it's P.T. Barnum. We need to explain it to students. So just a little bit of information to explain exactly what the topic, what the suggested topic is. And then is there a secondary article? Like, is there something in ConnecticutHistory.org or Connecticut Explorer that would give a little bit of an introduction? And then if there's a place to research it, let us know. And so I know that many of you are at institutions we haven't worked at before, and you better than anyone knows what your institution holds. And so we want to do our best to publicize it to students. And what makes a good theme or a good topic, I should say? Well, first of all, a strong tie to the annual theme. It has to link in some ways. Sometimes I've asked people for ideas and they just give me names and it doesn't really link to the theme. We really, as I said, want to encourage students to utilize Connecticut material and visit our state's museums, libraries, and archives, and just the right size. We tell students, well, you can't do the whole Civil War. Sometimes they'll come to you and be like, I want to do a topic on World War I. Well, that's great, but you can't cover the whole war in 500 student written words on an exhibit. So it's narrowing down the topic. And then also, why does that topic matter today? These are projects that are meant to be students marshaling an argument and using primary sources to do that. So you might be wondering, well, this sounds really great for the students and all, but what does it do for us at my museum or at my institution? Well, I think one of the real benefits of History Day is that it reaches that really hard to reach audience, middle and high schoolers, that are elusive audience, because we know that elementary school kids often will come on field trips, but once you get into middle and high school, it gets a little harder. This allows you to reach out to those and to work with those age groups and establish relationships with teachers. if you have topics, you can have students come and do on-site research, use your resources. You might find yourself being interviewed for a documentary. And we hope, it's always my dream to see other institutions do workshops related to History Day that we're not involved with. Now, I took a look at everyone who was registered, and I noticed that we had a couple folks who were from East Haddam and from Norwalk. Is that correct? So Norwalk has their school district participates in History Day in a huge way. So you can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with those teachers, but you could absolutely reach out to those teachers and work and do some workshops with them and help their students with research. So it's a way of engaging that audience. It's a way of drawing attention to your artifacts and archives. And here's the really great benefit. It gives you some cool PR if you have a student who's done a project that's related to your site, to your institution, but also you can kind of really make hay because let's say you have a student do an exhibit that's related to your site. You can have it on display for the following summer, or you can do a public program with a student. And those are all ways of helping your institution getting some free programming and also an audience, because usually when the History Day student comes, so does their family. So I'm going to kind of conclude with the how to participate, because I promised I would not talk a long time. And those of you who know me know I love History Day, and that's hard for me to stop myself. So from our attendees viewpoint, how can you participate? Well, you can give us topic ideas, which we will help publicize to our History Day teachers. We'll do a mailing out in early September and let them know the topic ideas are out and encourage them to use it. You can think about if you want to find out if your local school participates, you can contact us and we can talk to you and work with you on that. You can reach out to teachers. If you're in a place like Colchester, where we don't have any participating schools, you can send us teachers we should contact, or you can contact them to encourage them to participate. And last but not least, and Joanie knows this far better than most because she always comes to my rescue, but in the spring, judge a contest. And because it really gives you a sense of what students can do. It's really encouraging. It gives you hope for the future to see these young historians. And, it's an academic program. We give feedback to students because it's meant, while kids will focus on, oh, did I win or not? What's the most important point of History Day is the learning. And you as a judge helps the students to learn. And just to kind of let you know, the project, the one picture you see with Lisa Marcinkowski June, who used to be on the board of the league, is another friend of mine who judges all the time. The young lady to the right did a project on Carolyn Faraday, and so her project was on display at the Bellamy Faraday House one summer. The other young ladies with their project did their project on the Smith sisters. And you can see a picture of folks judging, and it's all consensus judging. So in addition to having fun and all, you get to meet other colleagues and people in the heritage field. And often we hear great things about that. So I promised to be short and sweet as much as I could. And that's just an introduction. I see we've gotten some chat and I haven't really been, oh, good. That's Amherst.
That's just me sharing a bunch of resources.
Oh, good. Because I didn't want to open it and get myself distracted, but that's a little introduction. And I'm going to hand it over to my friend and colleague, Joanie DiMartino, to speak a little further from her perspective.
Joanie, just make sure you're unmuted so you can get going there.
There we go. So I'm so sorry about that. I just wanted to say thank you, Rebecca and CLHO, and that I hope everybody is safe and cool on this really hot day. Thank you for joining us. I will try to be as short as possible as well. I also have a small PowerPoint. I think there's going to be some overlap between all three of us because, you know, there's a lot of the things that we're saying about History Day is all similar because we've had the same kind of wonderful experiences. But I'm going to just jump right in there. Prudence Crandall plus the school equals National History Day. I'm very fortunate in working at a site where our topic is just a perennial selection for Connecticut history. Prudence Crandall is the state heroine of Connecticut. And so the events that happened here at the Canterbury Female Boarding School draw the attention of students throughout the state. So we're very excited about that. But also there's a little bit of a double entendre here because Prudence was the principal of a school and we are a school site, education is vital to our overall conversation and mission that we have with our visitors. So talking about that from an educational standpoint, before I go into how you can participate in National History Day, I have to ask the question of how can you not participate in History Day? Rebecca, one of these days, is going to give me my very own set of History Day pom-poms because I am a huge NHD cheerleader. As she knows, I judged History Day for many, many years, even while I was working with the Kentucky Historical Society out west, and I participate now. I've had my son involved for many years. He'll talk in a second, but I am going to continue, being a judge and a History Day champion, even well beyond when Dante's past college. I want to point out that I think every historic site in Connecticut could be participating in History Day in some way, because I think all of us have a mission statement that talks in some way about preservation and education. And it's that education portion of our mission statement that is a no-brainer for me to make that connection. Even though students might not be directly talking about our specific site, it's still an education and an academic program. One of the things that I want to mention, if Dante does not mind me embarrassing him a little bit, is that he received an academic cord when he graduated, not because of what he was doing in other classes, but specifically for his 4 years of participation in National History Day. So there's no question that you could argue for your board's time and commitment to this program in some way that it relates to your overall mission. You can certainly sneak it in under that umbrella. Rebecca talked about how it reaches teachers and students. I'm going to emphasize that as well. It does network your site with colleagues, because if you're in a remote or a rural area, you don't get to meet with other museums or organizations or librarians. It's a great way to do that, to have those conversations and maybe find speakers that can come to your site for completely other non-related topics. And it promotes your organization internally with your colleagues, and then externally, as Rebecca said, with other audiences and parents and teachers that you may not be networking with otherwise. So how are some of the ways that we can participate? Obviously, judging a regional or state contest, and I don't want to Pollyanna it too much. It is intensive for those 2 weeks that you are assisting as a judge, particularly if you're working on a paper or judging websites where you may have a lot that you have to go through, and it may impact your personal time a little bit. But think about the things that you're getting as part of just all of these other things that are really a reward to you for doing that kind of community service to the students and to the state. You're selecting the students that are going to move on and represent Connecticut at a national conference where there are 3,000 students that are thrilled about history. I mean, you're just one small piece of that, but an extremely important piece. And if you're thinking, all right, Joanie, you know what, our board members are down to 5 people. We're all volunteer. We've got 2 people that are already over involved because they are doing steps and we don't have a lot of time. I get it. I totally get it. If you can't judge, please consider sponsoring an award, because along with first, second, and third place at the state level, Connecticut History Day offers a great package of different kinds of awards that as judges, we do nominate these other projects that go on to states do. For example, the Prudence Crandall Museum sponsors an outstanding award for an outstanding project in equity or equality in education. So for the past 2 years, we've done a project on student activism for HIV/AIDS. We have awarded a project to I should say we've awarded an award to a project on Sesame Street. So there are many different ways we can kind of create that connection. And Rebecca's team works on that. You don't have to do it. Just, could consider maybe a book on local history or a gift card to a local independent bookstore in Connecticut. These are some of the things that we have contributed. If you have a friends group, is there something the friends can offer? We've done that in the past as well. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it matters to these students to have their names and their projects read aloud and to know that, I didn't place third, but, I got the International History Award Prize for outstanding entry. So it's another way to connect. That also does allow your site and your history to get more promotion as well, because Rebecca sends out a list everywhere of all of the possible project awards that you're that students can win, and your site is connected to that. What I have here is a screenshot of the Lancaster History from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, their NHD page on their own website. So it really, you're already welcoming students in just by simply saying, hey, we are aware that you might be working on these projects, and here's some of the ways that we can help you. It's very easy to do, just adding that component, maybe making some suggestions, arranging for a special day. We try to do this at Prudence Crandall Museum, which is only for students, parents, and teachers. We're open when we're usually closed for a special day to do that research, so we can really give students and teachers our attention. I would also suggest, this is something a little thinking outside of the box, but there are a lot of teachers that have National History Day as part of their curriculum. Consider working with it with a teacher or a librarian, a school, as a club option. So it's not actually part of their curriculum. It's not overly involved for the teachers who often have a lot on their plate, but if they run it like an extracurricular club, it still counts. That's how Dante got involved. And I mean to tell you, there were times where he was literally the representative for History Day in the Stonington High School district section. So, Rebecca lists all the districts are involved, and they mentioned the Stonington Schools District. That was Dante. Sometimes he was it. So, but he was committed, and there was an interest there. So his librarian ran the club, and she did it every year. So that's another way of working with your local school district that may not be as intensive as say other areas that may have it as part of their high school or their social studies curriculum. You could simply offer a meeting space for the kids to meet and work on their projects. You could ask Rebecca to come and give a talk to the teachers on why it's important to do that. And I suggest featuring local students' projects, whether they feature your area or not, because again, it's making you relevant to the community that you serve. One more slide. And this is from the NHD website on what they're finding as the impact, the positive impact on students. Possible outcomes, as Rebecca mentioned, one of the things I want to say is students can also accumulate community hours at your site because they are aware that they can do things with your site. Dante participated in a summer and collected community hours with the Stonington Historical Society. His paper had absolutely nothing to do with Stonington history, but they found out that Dante knows how to read and write in cursive, which is an unusual skill these days. So Dante transcribed some journals for them over the summer, and they were thrilled, and it was a great connection, and Dante got to claim those hours on his school report. You could also, find some access to summer interns, possibly a board youth representative, and again, I can't emphasize this enough, stronger connections to local schools, because you are being being relevant to what they need, not just being a place of giving tours for them to take field trips. And that, again, that makes you much more relevant. And I think that that's significant. Consider these new audiences as a way to change your outreach, because the reality is we know that schools have cut back on their field trips. We know that they're not going to local museums as much as they really ought to. And this is a way for us to refocus that, to claim some of those numbers, to claim those volunteer hours toward our community that we spend judging a regional or a state contest. And following that line, this might be useful for grant applications as well, to say, hey, for the past 3 years, we've had 2 members. So we're dedicated. We are involved in Connecticut history. It looks really good for Connecticut humanities. Don't tell Scott Wands I said that. I think overall, it does help you feel really good and recharged. I know it's exhausting sometimes, and you think, oh my God, I've just spent a whole Saturday doing this. But at the same time, man, I just spent a whole Saturday contributing to this. I think it's amazing. I'm really excited I can't wait to see who Rebecca posts that goes on. Maybe it's one of the projects that I selected that goes up the ladder to states and then national. So I think there's some personal satisfaction there too that I don't want to dismiss. And I'm going to end where I began. It does fulfill your mission. Don't think it doesn't, even though you may not specifically have Connecticut History Day wrapped up. So I'm going to be quiet now and and let Dante speak for a few moments. He's just going to share some of his perspective as a student that's participated for some time. So thank you all very, very much. And you all know how to contact me. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Hey guys, I see my screen okay?
Looks great, Dante, thanks.
Okay, so I am Dante DiMartino-Hart, Joanie's son. I was a participant both at Missing Middle School and Stonington High School over the past 6 years. I'm going to talk about my experiences and everything. Come on, work. Here we go. Hang on. I'm back up. Technical difficulties here, give me a minute. Here we go. Okay. So I did 6 years of National History Day. 5 years I went to the state competition, and 1 year I went to the nationals. And all 6 years were of the paper category. And I continued to do it because it gave me pride in my historical ability. And my first topic was about the Nautilus expedition to the North Pole. I contacted the Submarine Force Museum in Groton and took a tour of the museum for information. And that first year, when I first went to the judges, I was nervous when it came time to meet them, because finding out that the judges are museum professionals can be intimidating, and it's tough because you know that they expect the best from you. And I was not scared after, there's also a lot of added credibility when you know that they're reading the comments, because you know the judges are museum professionals. There's a lot of credibility to what they say. And I was not scared after the first time though, because I soon realized that the questions being asked are simply to add perspective to the project. And by 10th grade, I even enjoyed the conversation and continue with it because it gave me pride. And as my mom said earlier, I got a cord at high school graduation for doing History Day. So that was a big deal. Only one in my entire grade to have one. So it was a big deal for me. So what can museum professionals expect from students? You can expect to be contacted by Connecticut participants for information or interviews. And you can also expect to be contacted by students all across the country for information or even interviews with yourself. So again, as I said, I contacted the Submarine Force in Groton for my 7th grade paper. And in 8th grade, I contacted the America's National Churchill Museum in Fulton, Missouri. And I was able to interview the Churchill Museum director. And I even attempted to contact NASA to get an interview with a female astronaut for my paper in 8th grade. So students can be very creative when it comes to tying the topic to the themes. And we take these projects seriously and we'll make every attempt to utilize resources that we believe will improve the project. And your museum and your knowledge are a very valuable resource to us. So what helping a History Day student does for your museum, it brings awareness to your museum and its story, and it can provide a different perspective about the story of your museum that you might not have thought before. So because COVID-19 prevented us from traveling locally this year or last year, we were forced to expand our resource base beyond just the local and regional sources. And this meant much more use of the internet. So I would recommend keeping National History Day in your planning for internet sites and update regularly so we have the most up-to-date information. And providing the resources to help a student to advance to the state or even the national competition will have an incredibly positive impact on that student. And as a student who went to nationals, I can tell you personally that the experience is something you never forget. And I'm available to answer questions afterwards.
Thank you so much. Dante, you get extra points here for taking time out of your summer to like write a presentation, put together slides, and spend the time talking with us today. So on behalf of the League and everyone who's here, I want to extend a special thank you to you. And congratulate you on all of your achievements as well. I think we can open things up for if anyone has any pressing questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and just speak up, or you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. Janet. Just be sure to unmute yourself so we can hear you. There you go.
Sorry, I'm new at this. I was wondering to what degree you have homeschoolers involved in this?
That's a great question. We have the majority of our schools are public schools. We do have some homeschoolers involved, and actually it's a program that works really well for homeschools because there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of curriculum. So we do have some, but always room for growth. You know, one of the challenges is it's finding the right teachers, you know, because if you send out a mass mailing and you know, it might go to the superintendent, it might get to a teacher, or it might not, you know, it's finding that right person. But it actually is a program. A couple of years ago, we had a homeschool in the Fairfield region who did really well nationally, but we have a few every year.
Thank you.
Any other burning questions? I think that the next stage here, and I definitely have a couple of recommendations here, but we'd love to just split up into breakout rooms. I'm going to pause the recording. The breakout rooms don't get recorded, so this is, you know, a safe space to share your topic ideas. We wanted to spend a little bit of time in smaller groups, just thinking a little bit about this theme of debate and diplomacy and history, and thinking about those ideas of debate and diplomacy pretty broadly. What are some topics that spring to mind at your own organization from, you know, historical periods that you're familiar with or that you know you have collections around? We'd love to gather some of those ideas. And to facilitate this, I'm going to share a link in the chat right now with, where is it? Oh, of course I didn't.
In Amherst, I did also I posted just 2 pages. ConnecticutHistory.org and Connecticut Explored have started some topic lists, so those are there so you can get a sense. And
great.
Nicole Sousa, who works with us in the state office, posted last year's document, and you can see it's a pretty, you know, we try to send out a pretty extensive list of Connecticut topics.
So I'm going to pop a link in the chat to a Google spreadsheet where, you know, we're going to be doing a little bit of work in our small groups. And so what I'd like everyone to do, you know, if you've never experienced Zoom breakout rooms before, basically what's going to happen is a little dialog box will pop up on your screen. It'll invite you to join a room. It'll, you know, clunk you along and move you into a new one. Once you're in the room, it'd be great if you can turn on your video and your audio so that and you can have a moment to introduce yourself to one another. And oh, that was not what I wanted to share. Come on, give me a copy. Copy and paste. Here's the spreadsheet link. So you can open up that Google Doc, and what you see is at the bottom, I've included tabs for group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, etc. So just go to the tab that is your group number. And what Rebecca has done is sort of seeded a couple of topics that have come in already that she thinks are good examples of the sort of thing, the right kind of scope with the right kind of level of description and resources listed. And so you can use those as a model as you're sharing your topic ideas. And we're hopeful that the conversation is going to generate some good ideas here. We'll give you, let's see, let's come back at 10 till 2. So we'll have, 10 plus minutes to do a little brainstorming. I might scooch that to 15. You'll get a little notification before we're going to come back together to the large group. Please pick a scribe for your group to take notes and enter things into the spreadsheet, because that's where we'd like to capture your ideas. And if you have any questions, you can message me or raise your hand or whatever, and I will do what I can to assist. So without further ado, let's go into our breakouts, and I'll pop into one that's a little less populated, and I'll see you on the other side. Gloria, if you're having difficulty, can you unmute yourself so I can hear what you're saying?
Okay, how do I get into a group? I'm not very good at computers.
That's okay. You haven't been assigned, I think probably because you came in after I had done the
I'm with the
assignment. So Beth too, I'll assign you both to some rooms. So just give me a second to do that. Gloria, thanks for your patience, Gloria. I appreciate it. You're going to room 5.
How do I do that? Oh, I just said join. Okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was me then. Okay. So the topic we had we weren't sure about a Connecticut topic really, but we came up with a broader topic of like a was it worth it sort of thing, where we take like these different controversial events in history and we kind of ask the students to give us like a yes or no argument as to was it worth it yes or was it worth it no. That's what we came up with.
We had a really good discussion and actually generated a lot of topics. I think one of the things, maybe more than one specific topic that we talked about was just kind of doing hyperlocal topics, which often are very successful, that you can look at something like, let's say, debate over tearing down Moodus, the historic part of Moodus. That's something you can find in a lot of different locations. And so there are a lot of, you know, again, kind of thinking those broad themes that you can find at your local level.
Great. Yeah. I mean, what locality doesn't have a sort of controversial, a controversy like that over space or land use or planning, you know, road construction, highway construction. These are great things that I'm sure you can find local examples of almost everywhere. Room 3, which was Gigi, Ileana, Nicole, and Sarah.
We also had a couple come up. Another was a land use issue, preserving Lockwood Matthews Mansion. So that's an interesting topic. And I think the idea of legal trespass, but for diplomacy. So not necessarily like trespassing on a physical space, but trespassing like your bodily autonomy, that sort of idea. So that'll be really interesting if someone comes up with that.
Fascinating. I like these ideas that kind of like think about, you know, these broad meanings of what debate and diplomacy especially can mean. Room 4 was Carol, Janet, and Joanie. What did you have a favorite?
Yeah, there were only 3 of us, so we each came up with one related to what we do. So very quickly, for Prudence Crandall, it would be the debate for the 14th Amendment and African-American citizenship. For the Huntington House, it would be the fact that Samuel Huntington was the president of Congress during the Revolutionary War, and, you know, how could you avoid diplomacy and debate, you know, by looking at him as a topic. And then one of our last person was a librarian for a genealogical society. And so the possibility of ethics on privacy issues surrounding the history of genealogy. So we thought that might be another possibility.
Oh my God, I love that. I mean, it's so timely right now too, in terms of
Yes.
like things you're reading around sort of genomics and genealogy, right? Yeah. Last but not least, room 5, Anne, Gloria, Melissa, and I popped in a couple of times when I wasn't shuttling people to breakout rooms. Melissa, I think you wrote down some notes for the group.
We talked about a couple different things. We kind of struggled with the idea of how much can you do when you're all a volunteer run organization or when you have a really small staff and you don't know all necessarily of your collections, or they're not deep in the way you want them to be deep, or their collections are specific in a way that doesn't feel like it necessarily lends itself to the topic, which was kind of the challenge Anne was feeling. She's at a farming museum, but we talked about how the discussion of legislation with the Farm Bureau sites like hers and how farming legislation would have affected local farms, and the discussion about genetically modified organisms or organic or conventional farming and that challenge. And then we talked about, Anne is at the Ethnic Center, and one of the things we talked about was kind of the broader, I think it's more like how ethnicities fought for recognition and rights. And that started with a discussion around the census, how are people recorded in the census, and immigration laws. And for her specifically, we talked about Ukrainian people often being misidentified and therefore lacking representation in a lot of places. And she was talking, we were kind of brainstorming how you could look in the archives for some sort of discussion either between letters or between the town about how people were treated in the mills in New Haven, because she's down in New Haven, or treated in towns. Were there any letters to the editor or things like that, where there was this discussion about rights and the fight for rights for various ethnic groups.
Thank you all so much. That's sort of a great quick tour of a bunch of different ways of thinking about this topic. We're really close to time. I want to thank you all for taking an hour of your day to spend with us, generating these ideas. I hope this has been sort of energizing for you. And I'm sure that Rebecca and Nicole are very grateful for your willingness to spend time thinking about this with them. I'm sure they're coming away from this with a lot of good ideas as well, and maybe you'll get some follow-up messages. Like I said, there's a forum that you can continue to suggest ideas. Rebecca, do you want to say a little bit more about kind of like next steps here for the group?
Sure. Yeah. If you would like to follow up with a discussion about where you're located, ways of reaching out to, is there a school nearby who's participating? Please feel free to follow up. I know Amaris had put my email address. You can also call me here at the office at 860-522-6766. I'd be happy to chat with you. Nicole and I really appreciate all of the great ideas and suggestions, and we hope if you haven't judged with us before that you will do so this year and also get a taste of History Day that way. And thanks, Amaris, for the opportunity. We're hoping to make this an annual event because we want kids to learn about our state's history, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Rebecca and Nicole, and Joanie and Dante for taking the time to present and share a little bit more, help us get all on the same page with History Day and what's going on. And, fingers crossed for an in-person ceremony this year, right? Good luck out there, everyone. Stay cool this week. And thank you for being a part of another CLHO colleague circle. We'll see you again soon.